Coffee with H2. And today I'm honored to have on our show the wonderful writer Pam Houston. She's written a number of books. Cowboys Are My Weakness, Contents May Have Shifted. She's also written a book about her dog, Hound, which I love, and many, many essays. And I've been following Pam really closely on Facebook, where she has been an outspoken person about our current political situation, about environmental issues, gender issues, and so on. And I felt compelled to invite her on because her voice is a very, very important one today. So welcome, Pam.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's great to speak with you. And it looks like you're in a beautiful Colorado scene there.
Yes, I live on a 120-acre ranch at 9,000 feet in Colorado near the headwaters of the Rio Grande, and I've been here for about 25 years, and it is my idea of heaven, for sure.
I saw some shots out your window, and I should say it really looks beautiful. So you've written a number of books, and mostly fiction, correct, and essay, but personal essays as well. So, how did what made you become a writer? Just to start at the very beginning, what led you to become a creative writer?
Well, I was an only child of much older parents, and I read to keep myself company, like many children. I had a fantastic babysitter named Martha Washington who taught me to read when I was 2.5.
Right.
And so stories and words and language was the way I kept myself company. And that just led to making sense of a pretty chaotic home life and a pretty chaotic childhood by writing stories about it. And, there's not a time I remember when I wasn't telling stories, writing stories, drawing pictures to tell stories. There's just not, for me, it goes back in the same way eating and sleeping and breathing go back. It's just the way I move through the world, the way I process it, and it kind of always has been.
Interesting. So a lot of your books have dealt with nature situations and animals. Could you talk about that a little bit? What draws you to that theme?
Sure. I had parents who weren't interested too much in being parents, and there was a lot of alcohol and a lot of violence in my house. And from very, very early on, even back in New Jersey where I was born and in Pennsylvania where I grew up, I was parented and mothered, especially by the natural world. And when I was in grade school, I would take long walks on the railroad tracks, in the woods, playing horsey in the fields. Just getting outside was always my definition of a good day. And that remains true. And I when I came out to Colorado and found this place, this 120 acres of paradise, essentially, it was the first time in my life I felt like I was home. It was the first time in my life I felt, truly comforted by the idea of home. And really, in a certain way, writing and being outside have always gone together. I everything I write starts with what I notice in the natural world, in the physical world, and then I bring it home to the page. I've written about other things besides the natural world, but my experience out there is always where a book or a story or an essay begins.
Interesting. And animals are very, very important to you.
Yes.
Can you
Yes, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, can you talk about that? Because I know you have a menagerie right now, but there seems like a very deep meaning for you in your relationship with them.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing to say is that my dogs, I've had dogs since I was old enough to have a dog, which means since I was a junior in college. And they've been the absolute center of my life. And they've taught me so much that I didn't learn in my childhood house, like so much about unconditional love, so much about loyalty, so much about kindness, so much about trust. I have Irish Wolfhounds now, although I used to have mutts, and I love mutts and Irish Wolfhounds equally, but I'm kind of hooked on Irish Wolfhounds, and they're the most soulful, intelligent, loving creatures imaginable. Being here at the ranch has allowed me to have horses and donkeys. I have a small a flock of Icelandic sheep who are their own set of lessons. They're these tough sheep who can weather anything, and they're sort of the wildest of all the domesticated breeds. I have chickens, and a cat, a feral cat who keeps the mice population down. And every morning when I'm out there forking the hay or cleaning the chicken shit, or just doing the barn chores, which takes about 30 minutes every morning, I think to myself, I am never more satisfied than when I'm doing this. That may not be true if you took away all the other good things about my life, like teaching especially, and writing, and the travel I get to do to amazing places. I might not be so satisfied forking hay every day. I recognize that, but it is deeply satisfying to me to care for animals.
So I know you have this paradisical world there, right? You're living in paradise, but there's a world outside, and you've been commenting a lot publicly about what's happening politically. Can you talk about that, and what's bringing you to speak in such an open way about your political positions?
Sure. I started to write this book that I've just finished about my ranch, and realized long before November, or even the run up to November, that for me to sit here on my mountaintop and write about this 120 pristine acres where, thank God the frackers didn't find oil upstream, or, it is protected here, at least so far, that it was a kind of heresy when, the earth is dying at such an alarming rate at our hands, and we seem intent on putting our foot down on the accelerator and driving it off the cliff. I couldn't write that book in good conscience, even though, I very much wanted to honor this place and its history and how it has made me the person I am. So the book changed about halfway through a lot into a book about the ranch, but also about how we are mothered and parented by nature and by the planet, and how we are animals, and how, with climate change and other environmental disasters, we are doing the most foolish thing imaginable. We're doing the thing that any animal knows what to do, which is not to destroy its own environment. And so the book shifted a lot. Then, of course, the run up to the election started, and, I just realized that I'm not even here on this planet without the natural world healing me from my childhood and teaching me how to live. I don't even exist. And so therefore, I wanted to do every single thing I could, everything I'm capable of, to fight and die, literally. One question I ask myself in the book is, like, if I could give my life for, for what, 100 years of no more vanishing species, no more pollution of the ocean, if I could give my life just to keep the whales fat, would I do it? And I think at this point, at 55 years into a good life, I would. Of course, that's easy to say without a gun to my head, but I just realized when I understood what the new administration would mean for the environment in particular. I mean, I'll speak in a minute about all the other things it's doing that I don't believe in, but in terms of just simply the environment and the EPA and climate change, right, and the denigration of all the places I love in the country and possibly the world, I just realized that it was my turn. It was my turn to get loud, because my first thought when I wake up in the morning is how hell-bent we are on destroying the planet. And my last thought before I go to bed at night is just deep grief about that. And so if there was ever going to be a time for me to really get involved, it was now. Of course, there are a million other problems with this administration, and I don't know if you want to talk about those. I know this is an environmental show, and the environment is my thing. It's my thing. So all the women's rights and the rights of immigrants and diversity and the arts and all the other things that are under attack just kind of fall into the same basket for me.
Well, but there's lots of interconnections, right? So
Sure, of course. Of course, we abuse women, we abuse our mothers, we abuse the planet, we abuse water. I mean, of course, it's all connected metaphorically and actually.
right, right. So I know you've spoken up very openly about gender issues, and could you speak to that a bit?
In what way in particular?
Well, you've been talking about the way I've noticed in your Facebook posts about the way Hillary Clinton was treated, and you've been outspoken about Planned Parenthood, and I think about the Women's March. So I think those seem to be also really important to you. I wonder if you wanted to just comment on that.
Yeah, of course. I guess I would say that I'm so alarmed by what's happening to us on a daily basis this week, the EPA, that, and I mean, the EPA, to name one thing,
Right.
that I haven't had adequate time to be as enraged as I ought to be about the simple fact of the misogyny and the hatred of women that this election has revealed. I mean, I guess before the inauguration, I was spending more time with that idea,
Right.
because there was time. And now, I said a while ago that I was afraid that this election would reveal that as much as this country depends on racism as an organizing principle, and as much as it hates Black and brown people, it might hate women more. And I think we found out that was true.
Yeah.
And there's a million things you can say about that make it not entirely true. And who voted and who didn't vote, and Russian involvement and all of those issues. But we had an enormously qualified candidate, and now we're seeing how unqualified the other candidate was, to put it mildly. And when this is all over, in whatever way it ends, if I'm still alive, I will spend some time thinking about how this country really feels about women, and the news is very, very bad.
Yeah, and so now as an educator, we're both, I teach, you teach. So DeVos was just confirmed. Pence broke a tie, never before happened in history. Your thoughts?
Well, I can't say I'm surprised. My thoughts are that she is radically unqualified, and she falls into a category of so many things that we've been talking about in the last few weeks, and prove how much our Congress members are bought and sold. I don't actually think that Betsy DeVos is a bigger disaster than the other disasters that they have confirmed. Speaking again about the environment, I think probably Rex Tillerson is the biggest disaster. But I think this has all proved to us that it's worse than we even expected, that our congressmen have been bought, because obviously, they wouldn't be approving people who have sworn to dismantle and destroy the organizations they're being put in charge of. That just seems like simple logic to me. So I can't say that I'm surprised. I was glad to see the Democrats at least put up a little bit of a fight on this one. But, we're in deep, desperate trouble. And Betsy DeVos is only one way. We're in deep, desperate trouble.
It's so true. Do you see any solutions in sight?
Really? Well, yes. I hope for impeachment, like many people. But I guess, to speak in a bigger way, I think Oh, can I wait? Can I think about that for a minute? That's a big question. Um, uh, I think we need, gosh, there's so many things we need. Education, compassion, kindness. I mean, it really goes to that. Like I am not enough of a, I have not been educated in the political world in what really happens in Washington. You know, I'm just a person speaking from 9,000 feet in Colorado. So I don't know what's realistic or practical. I know that there are many, many Americans and many humans who believe that the way to a happy life is to show compassion and generosity. That is a lesson I actually had to learn because my father in particular did not believe that. He thought you just went out and you grabbed whatever you could grab. And that was the measure of success in the world. So it was Martha Washington who taught me to read, and a whole lot of people after her, including wonderful professors and teachers along the way, who taught me that that compassion is its own reward, that generosity is its own reward, that the way to a good life is to give, not because of what you get back, but because it's the giving that makes you feel good. And, you know, we know that. We see it all the time. We see it in our little Facebook movies about kindness. We see it in the Super Bowl commercials that everyone's talking about. We know that. And for some reason, Washington has lost sight of that. Money or greed or corruption, whatever. Our country has lost its way. But love is still bigger than hate. It's bigger than fear. It's bigger than these lies that are being spread everywhere. And so I guess when you say how to fix it, it's by loving each other and the earth, and being as generous as you can, and being as compassionate as you can. I mean, it sounds utterly ridiculous in the face of what we're facing, but it has to go back to that at some point.
I agree with that. That's just really beautifully said. Well, we have to end, but those are extraordinarily important words you've just said, and I do think it comes down to love. And I think that position your dad held is the one we're struggling with right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was insanely, you know, it was just one long flashback, the election, for me.
Yeah, I think for a lot of women it was very traumatic for those reasons, and not just women, but for a lot of people.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We have to end. It's been our great honor to have the fantastic and really brilliant author Pam Houston on our show today, talking about her newest book, which will soon be coming out. It started out as a book, a beautiful kind of tribute to the landscape she lives on, and then switched to grief about what's happening to our planet. Many of us are concerned right now. Pam's words in this show are incredibly important. And thank you so much, Pam, for coming on. We are going to have to say goodbye now. I'm Heidi Hutner. This is Coffee with Hx2. You can see more of our shows at HeidiHutner.com.